It's a picture. You're looking at me here.
It's a representation of yourself, isn't it?
There you go, yeah. And they try and trick us into saying that we are a name. For example, you go into court and they call the name, Sam Smith, and this guy stands up and the judge says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Sam Smith." Bingo, you just contracted in to being the one that got charged, when in fact it wasn't the man who got charged, it was the name that got charged. Because the name is the name of a corporation. Now, if Sam Smith is smart, he'll simply say, "I'm here about that matter." "Well, who are you?" "Well, I'm the authorized representative of the name of the corporation you just called." In other words, make the distinction, because what they do right from the get-go is they try and make us believe that we are that name. And when that name gets charged, whether it's a traffic ticket or whatever, that we're it. We're not it. But we can choose to be surety. Now, for a long time, we were avoiding suretyship, simply saying, I went to court one time, I said, "But that name is not I." Well, they locked me up for that, so I didn't do that again. But what I should have said, of course, is, "I'm the authorized representative. What's the charge? Here, I'll set it off for you. What's the problem? What's it going to take?" But so they get very upset when you try and deny suretyship. Well, now what we do is we take on suretyship. So instead of saying, "Nope, that's not me," we now say, "Sure, here, I'll sign for it. What do you want? Go ahead, tell me. How much? I'll sign for it. Right here." I'm not frightened of suretyship anymore. Where we used to be, we were saying, well, if we admit to being the name, then they'll come after us. Well, no, we make it clear that we're not the name and that we are willing to handle the charges. But first show me the charges, and they tend never to do that. But that's another thing. So getting back to the corporation, they created the corporation for the purpose of charging. Simple as that, in order for them to create debt on the books so that we will pay their debt. But it's their debt, not ours. Same as credit card. I get crazy when people say, "Oh, I've got so much credit card debt." I said, well, no, you don't. The credit card company has the debt. Now, you want to set it off for them, or are you going to slave labor for them?
Yes. I mean, it's incredible, the system that has been set up here and how it's being used. And I even want to go back to the idea of why the fact that this is something called, we can call it Admiralty commercial law, or some have referred to it actually as the law of the water, and even in regards to how we the names and the etymology that we use. You just mentioned suretyship, for instance. We're talking about these kind of it's like it's a law of the water, right? The commercial law has to do with waters and commerce in regards to how ships were trading in way back when, many hundreds of years ago. Is there any connection at all there, do you think?
Oh, you're absolutely accurate. And my favorite example, of course, is the word birth.
Yes.
Ships are birthed.
Yes.
Babies are born. But they call it birth. I mean, if that's not right from the get-go, Talk about trying to make us or put us into Admiralty maritime law. You're right. I mean, and it never ends. I mean, the number of words that, you just picked on suretyship, yeah. It's endless. The number, of course, person is my favorite, but, and includes. The word includes. Okay, for example, it took me years. You'd think I would have done this, but only about in the past year I looked up the word Canada. Mm-hmm. You'd think I would have done this sooner, but anyway, I looked up the word Canada, and what it said was, first of all, it said, for greater understanding. Well, doesn't that immediately make you think, well, where's the other understanding? Like, did you write something before this, so what do you mean by for greater understanding? Greater than what? Anyway, so you keep reading, and it says, Canada includes the inland waters and the territorial seas. Well, it just so happens that the word includes means. It doesn't mean, for example, if you and I have a party and we say, well, let's have a party and let's include the neighbors, that means you and I have some friends here and also the neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. What they mean when they say let's have a party and that includes the neighbors, it means only the neighbors. So when they say Canada includes the inland waters and the territorial seas, it means Canada means only water.
Really?
There is no land called Canada.
Huh.
It's only water. So when people say, were you born in Canada? I say, do I look as if I have fins and gills? No.
Right.
I was born on the land.
Yes. And Mary, where do you go to check up? Do you use like a law dictionary? What do you use to check this up?
I'm trying to think, where did I look that up? I think I looked up the word Canada in the Interpretations Act, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. And the word includes, but you got to remember, there truly is a language called legalese. I mean, it truly does exist.
What did you call it? Say it again.
It's called legalese.
Uh-huh.
Like, it really does exist, and it's the language of lawyers, of the bar.
Yes.
And they changed the meanings, as you can see. I think includes is my favorite, but the other one is person, and person means corporation or legal fiction. It hasn't anything to do with man-woman. So when somebody says, well, you're a nice person, you know, I mean, when I hear that, well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm a woman. Maybe a nice woman, I may not be. But, so, you know, this is just sort of for the purposes of training. You know,
yes.
People up on their language, you know. But that's fun, and once you get over that, that's enough. But, but the words are absolutely incredible. For example, you'll always hear it in court. Or, you know, well, do you understand? Well, no, I don't understand, which means I refuse to stand under your jurisdiction. You haven't proven any authority over me, so no, I do not stand under it. I don't understand. And yet, they're pretending that what it means is, do you know what the hell I'm talking about?
Right.
It's not what they're saying, but it's what it sounds like. So they'll trip you up at any turn. And so it does help to know the meanings of a lot of these words, most of which will absolutely stun you when you go, what? Is that what they mean?
Yes.
I mean, it really is just, it's downright deception.
But I mean,
they're having fun with it.
Does this draw us back to the those who began this system? I mean, again, I'm thinking back to the old kind of merchants and those who were the initial kind of traders between nations, and that they were setting up a kind of a artificial system to operate outside the normal law of the land, so to speak, and that when they were doing this, they could also consequently supplant this later on onto the law of the land, and now everyone is actually operating within this law of water. So do you think there is a connection? If you go back a little bit, I mean, we could talk about the Templars, what have you. We can talk about the originators of the banking system itself, right? Isn't there a big connection there?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I confess I'm not completely up to speed on the history, but you're absolutely accurate about the fact that it all did start on the high seas, and it had to do with ports and the seas and piracy, and in other words, England allowed certain pirates to steal certain the goods from certain ships, just not English ships. It was it's barbaric,
yes.
You know, and how this all came about. And yes, it all had to do with trading, and I'm sure the East India Company, and all this comes into play. Well, then, in order to control the people on the land, they just carried it over.
Yes.
And they used the same words, birthing, and so essentially, and even we call our bodies vessels.
Yes.
They're vessels. Like, you know what I mean? It's so absurd.
And you know, it's like we're talking about this idea that, I mean, just look at the word bank, for instance, right? That this is I think Jordan Maxwell and another guy called Jason Whitney did a lecture about this a while back. Where I listened to this, very interesting, and they were talking even about the fact that there's even in regards to currency or the currency or the flow of money has to do with water. And even the fact that you're being charged, that this has to do with electricity and things of this nature. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes. It's very accurate. And charge and closing the circuit, and that's why we say we close the accounts. And, as you say, the bank of the river, it's all about water. And then, of course, I guess you could say, well, we're 80% water or 75% water. So maybe it applies to us in some surreptitious manner.
In some esoteric way, they've found a way to kind of supplant this, and I mean, in a way, it's as you say, it's logical in that sense then, but again, it's not applicable to what we actually are want out from the system, because again, this is a system that has been subsequently or afterwards, if you like, been supplanted above the natural or the real system that was there to begin with, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and this is why when we write a lot of documents these days, we're very careful to say that, you know, we are a man, or in my case, a woman, born on the land. In other words, you don't get jurisdiction or authority over me because I wasn't birthed, and I wasn't birthed on water. I'm of the land, over which you have no authority unless I grant you it. So, yeah.
Yes. And, you know, before, Mary, you were talking about national debt, that's a big, originator, so to speak, why we've kind of gotten in this mess that we're in right now. That implies to me, at least, that you know, that's this big international kind of organizations that are behind the creation of this. We could, for instance, then talk about the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Do you think that they are, you know, a big crook, so to speak, in this matter, and one of the originators on why we're living in the system we are living in right now?
Yeah, I wonder if you happen to see Aaron Russo's flick called From Freedom to Fascism.
Yes, I saw it a while back, yes.
Yeah, it's awfully negative, but he did mention one thing that I think is worth noting, and that is that he had a conversation with one of the Rothschilds. Wasn't it the Rothschilds?
With, I think it was Nicholas Rothschild or something like that, one of his sons, David's sons, I think.
Yeah, I think he's the baby, but I don't know. Anyway, and he essentially said, here's what's going to happen, and it was just crazy, and I think Rousseau kind of said, like, why are you doing that? And I don't recall the specific answer, but to me what came over was, well, because we can.
Yes.
Like, why not?
Yes.
It's a game for us. Congress
is
a game to these people. They created this craziness, and they thought, hey, we can rule the world. We can control all the people in all the world. And, hey, what fun. Let's try this.
Yes.
So I don't, you know, I'm not saying that they're evil. I actually think they are, but I'm not saying they're evil. I'm saying this is just their role on this planet. They just said, they came up with this scathingly brilliant concept, and they said, let's try this. Let's see what happens. So they implemented a banking system which was based on debt, which is insanity. As you know, is based on usury. And usury is ethically, or I guess I should say it's unethical.
Yes.
It's because it's just something you would not do to somebody you love.
Exactly, and the important thing here as well, I think, that you mentioned is that they haven't asked permission from anyone to do this. They just kept themselves in a position just to do it. They have done it, and I'm drawn back to that old statement that if you're, I don't know what the originator of it is from, but it basically states that, if you're dumb enough, so to speak, to go along with it, then you kind of deserve to go along with it. And that's the kind of mentality behind some of these people, that they have this idea that, if you're not looking at the details and studying the system that you're involved in, you're potentially might be fooled by it. And to a certain extent, I agree with that, because you need to know what the system is all about, right? If you're gonna, especially if you're in a system that is that you can utilize, because what you have explained for us here is that if you're in this structure, in this system, you can actually use it to your benefit. But that means that you have to be smart enough in order to learn how to operate it. Isn't that right?
That's right. And the thing that we find most annoying, of course, is that most people don't even want to know this.
Yes.
And so we're forced to walk away and say, well, darn it all, watch out. And especially people, who are, the old